All right, thank you for staying. Time now to look at the dailies on Daybreak. We have our guest reviewer, Salmon Salami, Media Director, Justice Pen Alliance, with us in the studio to give perspectives to some of the stories here. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on Daybreak.
Iva, good morning. Thank you very much. Stella, good morning.
All right, so let's begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. The lead story here says, "We will eliminate all terrorists by December," says the federal government. The writer says, "Worst of insecurity is over. Counterinsurgency, not fair, not a fair fight." That's according to Defense Minister. "Economic reforms must support military offensive," says security experts. You also have above the, in fact, let me take below the masthead there, just beneath the masthead, you would see 11 schoolgirls of FGC Birnin Yauri are still in custody. This is 446 days after. And then also we have one student of Bethel Baptist High School, Kujama, 419 days still in captivity. Now below that, death toll now 372 as flooding spreads to 33 states of the FCT. Police bust Ogun baby factory where men are hired to impregnate girls. You'd also find Kuje prison security breached despite 65 well-armed personnel deployed, says Minister. All of that, I believe, the Kuje update is coming out of the press briefing that we watched earlier. You also would see the pictorial showing you supporters of Kenyan President-elect William Ruto celebrate after Kenya's Supreme Court ruled to uphold Ruto's victory in Nairobi. That's yesterday. Buhari suspends new excise duty, telecoms tariff hike. Boko Haram runs short of food, weapons as floods take over enclaves. Lagos commissioner resigns as building collapse, death toll hits 6. Amuso returns to winning ways, strikes gold in Berlin. These are the stories on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Leadership newspaper. The Leadership newspaper has the lead story for the Leadership newspaper is a political story. It says, "PDP crisis, IU is going nowhere. Atiku's camp insists." The first writer says, "National chairman's removal will cause constitutional crisis in the party, Melai. Rivers people will decide who to support, Wike. South must produce PMB successor," says Omoagege Keyamo. And just on the right-hand side of that, we have Algon appeals to federal government states to recognize local governments as key actors. Liz Truss emerges third female UK Prime Minister. And beneath that, uneasy calm in Kenya as Supreme Court upholds Ruto's victory. And just above the lead story, insecurity, Nigeria is safe now. The worst is over, federal government. And above that, federal government bows to pressure, suspends proposed 5% tax on telecom services. And just above the masthead, we have speedy justice. Look, federal government launches database for suspected criminals. We also have the story here. Lassa fever, yellow fever kill 183. Cases hit 7,650 in 36 states and the FCT. These are the major stories on the Leadership newspaper.
And on Blueprint newspaper, quite a number of stories there. The lead story also touching on the security briefing that was held yesterday. It says, "Present security challenge Nigeria's greatest threat since civil war," says the federal government. The writer says, "Worst days over, terrorists on the run." Laments delayed justice, government's refusal to sign 3,150 inmates' death sentence. You also find Birnin community launches military action, urges extension to terrorist hideouts. And then you'd find also other stories there beside the pictorial, where it says Chevron, Shell, others to remit 341 billion naira to NNPCL by September. We will complete $3.2 billion Port Harcourt-Maiduguri rail project, says Minister. Police arrest suspected baby factory operators in Ogun. And then you also have Lagos building collapse. Commissioner resigns. Death toll hits 5. Truss set to succeed Johnson as British Prime Minister. You also have Kenya 2022. Supreme Court upholds VP Ruto's victory. FG suspends 5% duty on telecoms services. And then you also have DPO. Terrorists abduct 7 million naira ransom bearer, threatened to kill officer. That's that for the Blueprint newspaper.
And on the Nation newspaper, the Nation also led with a political story. PDP crisis. I will crush my detractors, says Wike. And the first rider, he says, it's too late to break my ranks. The second rider, Atiku already sharing positions before poll, says Rivers governor. And also still on the security situation in the country, worst of insecurity is over, federal government tells Nigerians. The first rider says 3,407 insurgents surrendered, 96 arrested by troops. Abuja-Kaduna highway now safe, 66 terrorists killed. Anti-terror war to be intensified, 52 captives rescued. And just beneath that, federal government suspends 5% tax on telecom services. Also, right above the masthead, petrol scarcity looms as Ipman stops supply. How Tinubu's vision turned Lagos into mega city. And also the story here, collapsed building, Lagos commissioner resigns. These are the major stories on the Nation newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Punch this morning. It leads with the Muslim ticket story. It says, no agreement with Tinubu, Khan insists, talks 12. And then you also have donation to Gulka Center, not bribe, to pacify Christians, says Khan. Khan's conscience not for sale. Prophetic voice cannot be silenced, Christian body. PDP jittery over Tinubu's visit to Jonathan, according to the APC. Onanuga promises issue-based campaigns. You also have, above the masthead, discos fail to utilize 1,936 megawatts amidst blackout, says the federal government. FG suspends 5% telecoms tax on calls and data. Flooding killed 372 persons in 8 months, according to NEMA. 11 state varsities shun ASU. FG threatens unions. You also have the pictorial there showing you scene of earthquake where over 40 people died and also destroyed homes in China. Fraud. EFCC arraigns Ogun Speaker, assembles 10 witnesses. And then you also have 4 more building collapse corpses recovered. Commissioner resigns. 5,307 kidnap robbery suspects arrested in 2 months. That's that for the Punch newspaper.
Also, let's take a look at This Day newspaper. This Day newspaper has a lead story that says, you have till December to crush all terrorists, bandits. Buhari orders armed forces. The first writer says, federal government says security situation has improved nationwide. Intelligence agencies, others vow to contain terror financing. And then just beneath that, federal government bows to pressure, suspends 5% excise duty on telecommunication services. And above the lead story, we have Khan. Tinubu's presence at Kuka's birthday won't change opposition to same-faith ticket. The writer says APC, NWC to engage state party leaders on Muslim candidacy. And just above the masthead, we have this coming from the CBN. Bank's total asset grew by 22.07% to 65 trillion in June. These are the major stories on this day for today.
All right, so let's get perspectives to some of these stories here. Like we told you, Salmon Salami is our guest reviewer. He's the media director, Justice Pen Alliance. Thank you again for joining us on Daybreak.
Once again, thank you very much.
Yes, quite a number of issues on the front pages this morning, but the security issue stands out. Virtually in all the papers, it's leading in most of the papers that we saw, except for a few. And reassurance coming from the federal government is that terrorists will be eliminated by December. And we see this press briefing where virtually all the heads of security institutions that we have in the country were all there. So the one question that many will be asking is, what have we done differently to, give us the guarantee that yes, indeed, by December we'll be over with this?
Well, like I always say, hope is the rope we hold on to when we are in need. And it is good that the government is giving Nigerians the hope that by December, all these things will be a thing of the past. But hope based on what? Is it just hope for telling us that, well, you will be safe? Or you have something on ground, or that you have re-strategized, or that you now have a clear understanding of what this insurgency is all about and a better way of handling it? Is it just mere hope?
That's a capital question also that we are all asking, because if you look at the updates. So for instance, if I may pick one of the stories also on the front page where the Minister of Interior talked about, Kuje prison security breached despite 65 well-armed personnel deployed. And he also went further to give a breakdown of the personnel that consists, of this 65 well-armed personnel. But we didn't hear what happened to the 65 that were supposed to, be on duty and, ensure that the prison is defended. So in terms of, say, for instance, sanction, we didn't hear what then happens to the 65 well-armed personnel.
You see, security issues are issues that are not normally discussed in the open. And I want to believe that the government will give us the information we need and may not give all the information as to strategy.
But isn't the issue of reprimand or discipline very important to deterrent for further, occurrence in case of, those who are probably, wanting to join the force or the service and the rest of them? Isn't that important?
I will agree with you. I will always agree with people who know and who believe that impunity is the greatest problem we have in this country. There is no consequence. You do things, if you know that if you do wrong, you will be reprimanded, you will be caught. If you know that there will be consequence, chances are that you will think twice before you do things. Honestly, impunity reigns supreme in the country, and this is sad. This is sad. No consequence for dereliction of duty. It is sad, really sad for this country.
All right, all the security heads yesterday promised that by the end of December, we'll see an end to insecurity. And some experts that responded to that said that the growing inequality between the rich and the poor and the rising hunger in the land could impede these targets. What do you think about that?
Honestly, like I said the other time, that the key role of government is security and the protection of lives and property of the people. And again, there is no doubt that the gulf between the have and the have-nots is widening, really widening. And there is the need for the government not only to just pontificate or just reassure people that, well, by December, insecurity will be a thing of the past. Like Lai Mohammed will always say, they have been
decimated.
Decimated. That is a real word, decimation, decimated. And in any case, we don't need to be too optimistic because they have told us that there will be pockets of attacks. And if there are pockets of attacks, we should not bother. What amount to pockets of attack? And at what point in time do we say that, yes, the government has really, really, really decimated these people, and that what we are just seeing, they are just one-off thing. But then, like I always say, let's be hopeful.
Exactly the question that how do we measure pockets of attacks? How do we, at what point do we say, oh, okay, this is nothing to worry about, it's pocket of attack. So if one person is killed or three persons are killed, maybe, you know, in a week, do we consider that as, you know, something not to worry about, you know, and all of that? So to what extent can we, how do we measure this?
Well, I think that the government needs to tell Nigerians exactly what they are doing or what they are about to do differently, if they can manage it anyway. But I still want to believe that it is still good that they are now talking to us. It is better for the government to talk to us and let us know precisely where we are on this issue of insecurity than to keep mute. But then it is better to underpromise and overdeliver than to overpromise and underdeliver.
But don't you think that for them to come out and say this, they may have something?
It's pretty difficult to trust the government now, given our antecedent. But even at that, we just have to.
So talking about trust, like how does the government reassure, or I'll say regain that trust that seemed to have been lost, you know, from government? Government will always say things, but it's another for Nigerians to also, you know, agree and receive what government is saying and all that. Well, so how can we regain that trust?
However, you see, you earn trust. You don't demand trust. Nigerians are seeing. If, for example, things change, it's very easy for us to know. Now they have told us that Kaduna, Abuja highway is now safe. You can travel even if you like by 1 a.m. But Nigerians won't do it. Why? Because they have not recovered from the experiences of the past. And unless and until we know that they are walking the talk, it will be pretty difficult. But like I said, it is still better to talk to Nigerians and tell Nigerians precisely where we are on this issue of insecurity.
All right, I'm taking you back to the earlier question. Some experts have said that as much as the government is working hard to secure the country, that on one other side, it should be working on the structural aspect of the country, which is the inflation, I mean, the economic situation of the country, so that it goes side by side, you know.
You see, when people are hungry, chances are that they will take to crime. When things are not going well, chances are that people will take laws into their hands. And it needs not be said again that Nigerians are hungry and angry too. And where you have such things, chances are that crime will flourish. It is sad to say it. But of course, the basic needs must be met, whether we like it or not. There are certain things that must just be provided. If people have jobs and there is security, and of course, there is the hope that the future will be, tomorrow will be better than today. I want to agree that crime, the incidence of crime will go down.
All right. I think this story here, Buhari suspends new excise duty telecoms tariff hike. Some persons reacting to it on social media said that it should not even be suspended, that they should just forget about it. And they base it on the fact that the Minister of Telecommunications and Digital Economy, in his argument, he said that excise duty ordinarily should be on luxury goods like cigarettes and the rest of them, and that telecom service is not a luxury service. In fact, it helps. In his argument, he said it helps businesses. So, what do you think?
Well, in the normal run of things, I think that Nigerians should get a better deal. Talking about communication. But you discover that, like everything in Nigeria, is a status thing. I doubt if they even believe that we are entitled to quality communication system. Because if you look at even what they charge, there are times that you will recharge and you will discover that you won't get value for your money. They will charge you, and yet you discover that you hardly make quality communication, yet you are charged. But thank God that Isa Pantami, the Minister for Digital Economy, saw reason and said that there wasn't any need for it in the first instance. The question should not be suspended. There is no need for it now. I doubt there is no need for it now.
All right, so I'm looking at the Blueprint newspaper, and quite interesting stories. And there's also another dimension to the security issue, which we didn't touch here, and I feel like it's important to touch that. So we are likely going back to the issue of security. One of the writers on the Blueprint newspaper says that there's a lamentation on delayed justice, government refusal to sign 3,150 inmates death sentence. That's also one of the objects. And yes, we've heard several stories about how the reluctance of some government officials to sign death warrants, and all that. And these judgments have been given, these people have been convicted, but for some reason they are there and are being fed with taxpayers' money. What's your reaction to this?
You see, the judicial system, our judicial system needs to be overhauled. People, I don't know whether you are aware that people do not seem to have confidence in the judiciary. And this is sad. Self-help, jungle justice. In fact, in the last few days, you will realize that people have taken laws into their hand. And this is not good enough, because anarchy is the answer, is the outcome of such a thing. But even then, when people don't have confidence in the judiciary, what do you expect?
But
Look
this
at
time around,
the issue of Wadume.
But this time around, the judiciary has done its part. We have governors who don't want to sign the death warrants.
Well, you see, personally, even I, Salmon Salami, do not believe in this capital punishment. This is an issue for another day. I want to believe that emphasis should be on deterrent and rehabilitating criminals. Not necessarily, it's vengeance or vengeful way of thinking that he killed my mother, let us kill him too. He murdered my mother, let us send him to the goals.
But that, that would mean, I mean, we are talking about justice. So for the victims, you know, of these people, that will mean justice for them.
What
that
is the end of, what is the end of justice?
As long as that person is, you know, is alive and breathing well, for them justice has not been served.
However, so, what is the end of justice? The finality of death itself makes death sentence unuseful and unhelpful. You see, when you punish somebody, why do you punish? You punish that person so that he will change and perhaps be useful later. But when you send somebody, when you kill somebody or you ask, okay, it's death sentence, you should pay the supreme price.
So are you saying that we should jettison this part of our law and you know, have a rethink about it?
There is the need to have a rethink. I think let us interrogate this.
Including for those who have gone ahead to kill thousands of people in the name of
The question should not be they have killed thousands of people. The question should be, why do they kill thousands of people?
Well, some of them do not have any reason.
No, well, you see, there is no hard and fast rule about this. But the most important thing should be, let us know whys of issues done.
Is it enough to know why?
It is.
I mean, how do we deter, you know, further occurrence?
You see,
of, you know, the kind of killings that we see?
No, I'm not justifying killing. Let us get it right. I'm not justifying killing. I am not, in whatever form. But what we are saying is that we should be more interested in deterrence, deterring people from committing crime, than laying emphasis on, and if there is consequence.
What if all efforts have been done to deter people and then they still go ahead and commit this crime?
Well, if it becomes inevitable, perhaps, but honestly, as a person, I do not believe in capital punishment. I don't. But well, that is a personal view.
All right. Well, others will disagree with you because for justice to be served for some, it means that those who are guilty of putting them in the situation they are in should face the capital punishment, and where the law, you know, prescribes so, and where all the requirements have been fulfilled, you know, according to the law and all that. So let's just leave it there.
Eye for an eye will make all of us blind.
Well, that's discussion for another day, like you said. Perhaps when we have another person who, you know,
has a contrary
view, would, you know, be able to balance this.
All right. Let's take a look at the story. Lagos commissioner resigns as building collapse death toll hits 6. Only at the weekend, there was a 7-story building collapsed in Lagos. And in November last year, a 21-story building collapsed in Lagos where about 44 persons died. Between then and now, they have had some building collapse incidents in Lagos as well. So, and then we see this commissioner resigning. We don't see this kind of thing often in Nigeria. What do you say?
I read it this morning and I told myself that perhaps there is hope at the end of the day. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Well, for the man to say that, well, I should pretend over this and this has happened, honestly, it only means that I have failed to some extent. Well, I think the attitude or what he has done is commendable. But that is not to say that that is not enough. That buildings are collapsing, especially in Lagos. We have had more of it in Lagos, no doubt about that. Means that there is something that they need to do. The engineers, they have to find a solution to this. And they have to make sure that quacks or quackery is not allowed in that profession because it has to do with life. Quite many people are still under the rubble as we speak. And this is not good enough. We can't continue like this. But, that the man has resigned is a show of integrity.
But there are also, when he tendered his resignation, the governor accepted it, and he said that it's a prelude to some restructuring that was going to happen in the ministry. So some persons have said that maybe he heard about the restructuring and then he decided to, tender the letter before that happened. Maybe he was going to be affected by the restructuring.
So it may not really be about the building collapse after all.
Well, these are conjectures. What is sure and a fact is that he resigned. And let us work with facts that he resigned. He still has something positive.
But then only recently also there was a building collapse in Kano where when the executive secretary of SEMA went there, he didn't need any engineer to tell him that the materials used were substandard, because you could even see them, even by just seeing the videos on the television. And in Abuja as well, not long ago, a building came down. Why do we keep having these incidents?
Well, we will continue to have it, in as much as there's no consequence. There must be consequence. The current Council of Registered Engineers and the Nigerian Society of Engineers and all those involved in building should come together and say, no, we cannot continue like this. There is need for the regulatory body to do the right thing and please punish those who have been found to have compromised. Because we are talking of life. This involves life. And honestly, one life lost is as gruesome as many lost in the pogrom.
All right, so let's look at yet another disaster that has been on the front pages of recent, talking about floods. We understand that flooding have killed at least 372 persons in 8 months, according to NEMA. That's a very, very high figure. Yes, it looks like it has a global dimension. Floods virtually, across the country. It's almost like a daily experience now, and a lot of the blame, is on the issue of climate change and all of that. Are there things that we can do to also reduce the impact of this flooding here?
Of course, there are quite a lot of things we can do.
And whether or not we are actually taking them seriously.
There are quite a lot of things we can do. The fault is not in our stars. It's in ourselves. We all know that there are some areas that are prone to flooding. And we know the rainy season, the time for the rainy season. And we know what we ought to do. Do we really do all these things? Do we really do all these things?
So one of them is that NIMET usually will give, intelligence, or I would say information to members of the public, warning,
exactly.
that there could be, flooding here and there and all that. But sometimes that communication, do you think that there's some kind of breach? Because it doesn't look like it gets to the people that it needs to get to.
Well, yes, there is always room for improvement, and there is need for real communication, real and effective communication. But more than this, do we heed to what they have told us, that please, stop even the piling up of waste. Drainages are blocked. Even Abuja here. Blocked drainages. There are quite a lot of things that even we as citizens should do, which we don't do. Indiscriminate dumping of waste.
Apart
to
from
block
that,
the drainages.
Apart from that, there's always this issue of NIMET. Once they give the warning, they call on people who are living in flood-prone areas to relocate. And then some of those people have always raised concerns about not having anywhere else to go. What do you think government can do in that regard? Some persons have said that if government can come up with low-cost houses and all of that, maybe it can help. And then how many of that can come up? So do you think there's a way government can come in that regard?
Yes, there is a way. There is always a way. I am of the view that a dead man does not need a house anyway. If you are dead, you don't need any house. So what we should do is let us preserve life first. If there is need to relocate them and they don't want to leave, government know exactly what to do. But then, relocate. Relocate to where? Relocate to where?
Well, that's the question that we are also asking. That if we have such information, I mean, we have a lot of people in the IDPs already. So either ways, if you do not leave before the disaster happens, you are likely going to leave after the disaster happens. So
maybe not alive.
That's if you are alive.
And sometimes not even alive.
Exactly, sometimes not alive. So should we also consider maybe having some kind of temporary camps for some of these prone areas, flood-prone areas?
Don't you think we have enough camps? Must we add this to add to the number of camps we have? Government, it only means that government has not provided enough low-cost houses. And these are things that we think government should do. Affordable houses, not the Maitama kind of a thing. Not the Gusampe kind of a house.
What about planning, like urban planning? We've heard about how, urban expansion has also contributed to the issues that we are dealing with, how, people are building on waterways, and then, officials who are supposed to make sure that, these regulations are taken seriously, they look the other way, and while these things happen and all that.
Look at most sectors. I won't say that the government has failed. I won't use that word. But there is the need for the government to be alive to their responsibilities. Some of these things we are saying, they know it. Since when have we been talking about planning? Urban and regional planning? Providing affordable houses to or for the people. For how long shall we be crying about all these things? These are things that we think that the government should have done or should be seen to be doing, and they are not doing it. And some of the things we are seeing, some of the criminalities we are seeing, they are consequences of our irresponsibility.
As a people, as a
As
whole.
a people.
All right, then. That's the point for us to end the newspaper review this morning. Thank you so much for coming on Daybreak and sharing your perspectives with us.
Aiba, thank you very much.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Our guest reviewer has been Salmon Salami, Media Director, Justice Pen Alliance, giving us perspectives on the stories on the front pages of our newspapers this morning. With that, we'll take a short breather, and then when we return, top of the hour, we'll take a look at the headlines again. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that